This Daf Yomi Yerushalmi Seves Ma'aser Sheni article Oswald edition. We're on Daf Memvav Amrav, the third line at the top, Rabbi Zir Boy, which in the Vilna is on Kovches Amrav, first wide line, Rabbi Zir Boy. And yesterday we said that the reason why we use different substances for marking off different prohibitions is based on how long they have to last. To mark that provide it's a short time, so therefore just clumps of dirt. To mark orla, it's a longer time, 3 years plus 1 year. So we use pot charts and white pot charts, and with kvarim, which have to last forever, we use plaster. So Rabbi Zira asked, why see each one is symbolic of whatever's there, and that's like the Bavli says in Bava Kama the clumps of dirt by netervai, because you can get enough from them like dirt. Charosis, broken pottery by orla, because you can't get enough from it like broken pottery. Orla now have enough. And the plaster, white plaster by bones, because by kever, because the bones are white. And we have a Tosefta, which the best knowledge is not brought down anywhere in the Bavli. I'm pretty sure it's not. 100% sure that where we make signs according to the thing that we're making the sign of. So, for example, he gets like the Brisa says, the Brisa here in Brisa Sheni, Elon shel hektish, if you have a tree which one is hektish, Masokan b'sikra, you may mark it with a red belt, just like the red belt which marked the halfway place up the mizbeach, between the distinction of dam yoyim dam mitachtonim. That's how you mark the tree. But if you need to mark Hasa Bazar, which had to be destroyed, some item with coal to show they have to be burnt, like it says Hashem Tisfun Beish. Ba'is Nuga, nothing of Ephraim Makra, on a house which has a ras, which has to be pounded down to the ground, turned to dust, so we put burnt ashes. Ashes symbolizes dust. Makam Haruk, when you have somebody who's killed and nobody knows who killed him, you have to measure to the surrounding cities. So you mark that place with blood, presumably blood of an animal. But in any event, it's interesting because it sounds like you don't leave the dead body there in order to measure. You put a mark there on the ground made out of blood, and then you measure from that mark. Depends where the mark should be. Corresponding to where his nose was, where his navel was. But the point is, you don't leave the mace there to bury. You bury him and you leave a mark again. And it's the best of my recollection that's not in the Bavli. So the Malkim Garufa, the place where you actually make the Garufa, perform the procedure with a belt of stones to indicate you can't plant there, just like you can't plant where there's stones. So it says Gemara, wait a minute, this secret, how does that work by heck? That was all the Tosefta. Now the Gemara asks, how does the secret work? Maybe it's the secret will be confused. People think it's a tree which sheds its fruit before it becomes ripe. Which is put down in the Bavli. So a tree which sheds its fruits inappropriately. So the secret, we mark it with a red coloring. The Martina Soavanim. And we make it heavy with stones. And we embarrass it, which make fruit. So this is a Tosefta Shabbos Paraches Design. It's brought on the Bavli and Shabbos and Samazayin Chulin Ayin Zayin. Also about the Yerushalmi Shvius. The tree which is shedding its fruit, you color it, put out a red band on it. So people should see and daven for it, and you load it down with stones in order to diminish its sap, its strength, which evidently shoots off too strongly, so to speak, and causes it to drop of its fruit. And we embarrass it in order to make fruit. So in any event, we use secret for that. Talmud, the Mishum Lo Yatir Perui. And there's where it's in order to make sure that it doesn't jump the gun, release its fruit. People see the fruit actually on the ground. You leave the fruit there, which actually fell off, so people understand. Okay, this is fruit which you had done for. But here the other the chatchila. But here the before any fruit grows, the people not going to see fruit grow, and through the chatchila in order to show that this hektish stay away. So therefore, people know the distinction between a mark of sikra where there is fruit in the ground, a mark of sikra where there's no fruit in the ground. Rabbi Yana said, "V'lama lena b'chut shel sikra zeich lemizbech." Let's say that the tree which sheds its fruit, you make its entire trunk red as a sign. But the tree of hekdesh, you only make a belt like the chut hasikra which was on the mizbech. Okay, chut shel sikra zeh mizbech. I need to tell like over there. Chut shel sikra chogr be'emtza. A string of sikra is the belt in the middle of the mizbech. The distinction between the higher blood and the lower blood. Umar goes on, says, Tanya B'chia, Sokin Oso Allah B'sikra Hekdesh. B'chia gives another answer. He says, you write Hekdesh on the tree in red. Okay, in other words, you use that reddish ink to write actually the word Hekdesh on the tree, as opposed to the tree which is shedding its fruit, where you just don't write anything, you just make the sign of the circle, the belt around the tree, in order to indicate that it's, or maybe for that matter, you know what, the Rashi says you do color the entire tree. I think you have to say that, because just to sing without that, it says something of secret hekdesh, you write the words hekdesh. But whatever you do with any other tree, when you make a belt of red or entire color the entire tree red, people are going to know. So I don't think it's muchach that's the difference. Could be that you don't make the entire tree red, but the point is still that one has letters and one doesn't. Okay, so now we have a new sugya. Rabbi Yosef Sheni Amud Davar Echad. So Rabbi Yerushalmi gives an introduction to the sugya. In Masechet Maya it says if you give to your innkeeperess fruit in order to fix to food in order to make you a meal, she's suspect to switch it with her own fruit, and therefore you have to ma'aser what you give her, so that she should eat something which is not fixed, and whatever you take from her, because she's suspect to switch. The Yossi argues and holds not chayiv to ma'aser giving her, because we're not responsible for cheats. And we don't have to care. It's not our responsibility to make sure they don't eat something which is ma'aser. And you only require to ma'aser whatever you take from her, not whatever you gave to her. Now, that was Rabbi Yossi holds, but since Rabbi Yossi holds, we're not responsible for the cheats. Sheni Gamliel, our Mishnah holds that we don't mark a Kerem Ravai, except unless it's Shviz, because we say otherwise, Haytel Rosh Hashanah, let him swallow and die. So it seems to say the same thing. We're not responsible for the cheats, right? You don't make a dakana for people who are going to be dishonest. So that's what it says. Rabbi Yossi Gamliel Amud Davar Echad. Come on, Rabbi Yossi Mar Enu Achrein L'Ramayim. Just Rabbi Yossi holds we're not responsible for the innkeeperess who's a cheat. So too, we're not concerned with the people who are going to steal fruit. We have to mark it as being usher to them to eat. It says when we stop Rabbi Yossi Yodei Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. It makes sense that Rabbi Yossi will consider Sheni Gamliel. Sheni Gamliel lo yedei Rabbi Yossi, but Rabbi Sheni will not consider Rabbi Yossi. Meaning, Rabbi Yossi Yodei Sheni Gamliel she'enu achroin l'ramayim. We don't take into account the unethical people. If we don't take them into account on the case of the potential switch of the fruit in the inn, we don't take into account over here in the case of Neter Ravai. But Rabbi Sheni Gamliel lo yedei Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Sheni Gamliel will not concede Rabbi Yossi, will not allow you be a dime to give the innkeeperess tevel. She'ein derech l'chaver l'tzim v'dumei davar shem b'sukkah. The chaver does not allow out of his house something which is not fixed. When he's giving it to somebody else directly, he doesn't give it to somebody unless he fixes it ahead of time. Okay, minayin let's see. The general point of the question here: how do we know that we mark kavalim? Brecha b'Yaakov b'Shem b'Yaakov barbas b'Yaakov B'Shem Rabbi Chunya, the Bras Chavron. Rabbi Yossi Amar Lo, Rabbi Yaakov Racha B'Shem Rabbi Chananya, Bras Chavron. Rabbi Cheskel, Rabbi Uziel, Brei Rabbi Chunya, the Bras Chavron. B'Shem Rabbi Chunya, the Bras Chavron. A lot of people in Bas Chavron were speaking about it. It's interesting because Bas Chavron means, obviously it's the name of a place here, evidently, but Beis Chavron, but Chiver is Chiver Katzamos, right? They're all talking about the whitish tinge of the whitish hue of the plaster. Anyway, the Tamei Yikore. The Tamei Yikore. A person who's a Mitzvah has to call out that he's Tamei. People should not come close to him. They say, Tuma Korei L'cha B'Piyah. The Tumah has to close out with you verbally from Melech Approach and says, separate yourself. And this is what we say over here. Tamei Yikra, the kever to calls out to people and says, stay away from me. I am a place of Tumah. Rabbi Hillel B'Shem Rishon Bar Nachman, the different sources from Yecheskel. Tamei Yikra is a pasuk in Vayikra, if you remember. There's a pasuk in Yecheskel, Namates, where it says after the Chemetz Gog and Magog. This is from the Haftarah Gog and Magog. People pass through the land. For Etzem Adam, they'll see the bone of a person, but not it's slow too, and they'll construct a marker there. Mikachim Mitayim Ad Samos. So in this we see you make a marker where you find bones. The Leib Yerushalmi brings down here specifically. There's a Rov Akav, a Rov Binyan, or a Rov Minyan, because that's the amount which is the Tamei Ohel, not an Etzem Kesora, but it's the amount which is the Tamei Bohel. Adam, Mikachim Tzayim Asheru Gugolis. So it says Adam, that teaches us that we make a marker where we find the spine or the skull, which also Tamei Bohel if they are intact. Ubana, it says you construct, you build it to you, right? Well, it's no bana, it's so too. Because you're trying to evakov, here we see it has to be on a stone which is permanent. Okay, not one which is going to roll around. It's being embedded in the ground there, not one which is going to roll around from place to place. Because otherwise it defeats the purpose. Because they can do it on a stone which is uprooted from the ground. I feel less so the time so it's going to go be matame elsewhere. It's low, the Malcolm Tara. Has to be that extends over the shear of the kever, and some of the marker is a Malcolm Tara, so you don't get too close, right? It's like a buffer. Tziyun, Bikan Tziyun. Since it doesn't say interesting, the Moshe, since it doesn't say Bonat Slow Matseva, that you build a gravestone. So it teaches us you pour plaster on the ground. It's not quite the same like you do in Eretz Yisrael today, but once at a time which in Eretz Yisrael, they pour plaster flush to the ground. And nowadays they do a raised surface, but once at a time it was plaster first to flush to the ground. In order to demarcate it. And my both my grandparents, some of my grandfather's kever in Toronto, they have a metal railing around where the body is, and the broilers basically where my father is. They have not every kever, some farm have like a metal frame in the ground with stones which demarcates it. But in any event, so these are the tziyun here is not as similar that the plaster is supposed to cover the entire. It's not just a tombstone. It's supposed to cover the entire Malkum Tumah on the ground. Tani, we learn Matzah Emin Achas Mitzvah. This I think is actually the next page already. Yeah. So actually we will let's stop Memzai now. So we'll stop here for today.